But like, I didn't even really know what it was, like what my dream was more in a solidified sort of way until like 2 years ago. And so for me, chasing dreams is a journey. It's like, for me, it's the transition from ethereal to concrete.
Ignore that. So,
okay.
Hi, and welcome to the Dream Chasers podcast. I am Samantha, and I have the lovely Laura Ellis here with me today. So, Laura and I know each other because we both belong, and I hate calling it this, but we both belong to the Entrepreneurs Forever.
I know what you mean.
I know. It used to be Mansman Foundation, and then they changed it to E Forever, and I'm just like, I can't. It's just such a dumb name. And I let them know it all the time. I'm like, I love the organization. It's a terrible name. So Laura is actually one of the first people I asked.
Really?
Yeah, you are. And we just never managed to make it. I never managed to get my shit together enough to make it work. So Laura does, and please correct me if I'm wrong. So you do acupuncture and Chinese medicine.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
So for those other folks who are idiots, what exactly does that mean?
Oh my God. It means so many things. So acupuncture, and we call it Oriental medicine because it can be also Korean, there's Japanese influences, things like that. It encompasses acupuncture, which most people understand as like sticking needles in people to make them feel better, but it encompasses a lot more than that too. Really big part of what we do is Chinese herbal medicine. So herbal formulas, prescriptive herbal formulas, cupping, I got in a fight with an octopus in one.
Yeah. I've seen the after effects of those on like TikTok and stuff. I'm like, that sounds horrifying.
No, it's great. It's wonderful. It looks horrifying. Yeah. But yeah. And gua sha, same thing, looks horrifying, creates these like big ugly bruises, but is like an amazing muscle releaser. So, like body work, things like that. Okay. Lots of stuff are included under that umbrella. So it's a medical clinic. It's under the umbrella of Oriental medicine. Okay. So we're sort of careful about like, we're not a spa, like you don't tip us for what we do. Right. Like we're, like in certain states, we would be considered doctors, even like PCPs, not in Pennsylvania because Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania. Right. But New Mexico, Florida, we would be, I'd be Dr. Laura Ellis and, that sort of thing. So
in Pennsylvania, what kind of like requirements do you have to do this?
Well, everything that you would in New Mexico or Florida as well. You just get a different title for it. But so what you have to do is you have to get a master's degree. And the master's degree is 3 to 4 years, depending on how fast you go through it. Normally 4 years. It is, you have to pass a total of 5 different board exams. One of them is easy. It's like a clean needle technique. It's like a 1 day how to be clean, with your needles. Right. And then one of them is an herb board, and Pennsylvania does not require that to be licensed. If you don't have that one, then you can't prescribe Chinese herbs. Okay. But we do at my clinic. Me and my associate are both we're board certified to practice Chinese herbalism. Fancy. I know. So you have to have all 4 of those 3 to 4 of those boards. Right. And then you pay the state of Pennsylvania to be licensed as well then.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Honestly,
people don't realize it.
No.
Yeah.
Because in the meetings, like we never really talk about, we don't really get in the weeds of like exactly what it is that you do. We just talk about the business aspects of it. Right. So I wasn't sure exactly like the difference between you and a spa.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. People are like, oh, so did you learn this over the course of a weekend? And I'm like, oh my God.
Did you go like on a retreat? Yes, it was 4 years long.
$125,000 later.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh dear God.
Yeah.
So we do this thing. Mm-hmm. So thank you for coming and doing this thing with me. So I have to read the poem. Mm-hmm. One of these days, Langston Hughes, the state's going to be like, stop it. But I love it, and it's all out of respect. Because I feel like it encompasses so many things. So, Harlem by Langston Hughes. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? So, Laura Ellis, with all of the numbers and letters after your name. Good Lord. LACMSAOM. I don't know. NCCAOM.
Yep.
Laura Ellis. When you think of dream chasing, what does that mean to you?
I thought about this earlier today because I knew you were going to ask me this, and I was like,
because this is the one question.
This is the one question. What does this mean to me? And it's hard because I've always considered myself the kind of person who has a lot of dreams. My imagination's always been active and like moving towards something. But when I was a kid, it was really like it was a dream. Like it was something of my unconscious that kind of only comes up in dreams. It was ethereal, lofty. Like I didn't know. I knew I wanted something. Like I had that urge and motivation to move towards something, but I never knew what it was until honestly, maybe 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Even though I've been practicing acupuncture now for 8 years on my own, I've graduated 8 years ago, but like, I didn't even really know what it was, like what my dream was more in a solidified sort of way until like 2 years ago. And so for me, chasing dreams is a journey. It's like, for me, it's the transition from ethereal to concrete.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened 2 years ago that?
Well, we were coming out of lockdown and COVID about 2 years ago, maybe three, like two-ish,
change,
Yeah. And that, not to minimize what happened, but for me, lockdown was a really good thing. I came through it well, I came out of it well, and it forced me to reconsider where I'm at, what I'm doing. When lockdown hit, I slept for like 3 days and I was like, well, clearly I was burning out. This was not working for me. What I was doing was not working for me. So a lot of reevaluation. And this might be kind of scandalous to say.
Oh.
I love what I do. I love my patients. I've never been in love with Chinese medicine.
Okay.
It was always like a tool, I kind of meandered onto this path, just like one step at a time. Again, this like not knowing quite where I'm going, but taking the next step and like something else concrete comes up. Right. And that's how I found acupuncture and Chinese medicine. And it just fit all the boxes of what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with people individually. I wanted to connect with people. I wanted to help on a mind, body, spirit level. Yeah. Acupuncture does all that. So I love that it allowed me to do that. But, there are people who go into Chinese medicine for the love of medicine and for the love of how deep and scholarly it can be. And I've never experienced that. And so I kind of came through lockdown being like, I don't want to do this forever. I don't want to do this even when I'm 70. I don't necessarily want to retire being a solo practitioner. And, that's not really what I want to do with my life. And so there's like, again, like one step in front of the other, things unfolded, and even things that I don't even remember anymore. But like, I know that what that unfolding led me to was, what I really want to build is a business that I would be proud to sell when I'm ready to sell it. Yeah. And that's what sparked everything for me. Like, yeah.
That's totally valid.
Yeah.
We sometimes, I think as Americans, we have this idea that our vocation has to be our avocation, and I don't think it necessarily does. Yeah. I had a very similar realization, not because of the pandemic, but because of the lawsuit.
Oh yeah. And
so, for those of you who don't know, I have a former landlord who sued us for $500,000, and it is leading to still 7 months into the dissolution of the company. But that forced me to take a step back and go, is this what I want?
Yeah.
And I fucking hate retail. I had 3 stores at one point, and I realized I fucking hate retail.
Yeah.
And why? But we get on that we're working, right? We're just doing the thing. We get up every day. We're good at what we do, and we're plugging away at it. And we sometimes forget, that we're not loving it.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
I remember when at the meeting, I think you were at this meeting, and Terry was like, what's the plan? I'm like, I'm shutting this shit down. And like the look on his face was like, wait, you've been spending 12 years building it. I'm like, yep, shutting it down.
Yeah.
Shutting it down. Could I have fought it harder? Yeah, probably.
But why?
But why?
Yeah.
Exactly. And it increasingly became a thing that I realized I was starting to resent.
That's huge.
It's huge because it's not my avocation.
Yeah.
I'm an actor.
Yeah.
And, and some people might view that as being pipe dreamy or whatever, but it's no more pipe dreamy than having a soap company.
Okay. Yeah,
it's really not.
That's fair.
It's really not.
Yeah.
Anytime you take a hobby and turn it into a business, it's kind of pipe dreamy.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's important, whether it's a vacation, whether it's a lockdown, whether it's a lawsuit, I think it's important for people to take a step back and, why am I doing this?
Right. And for it to be okay that it's not the reason why other people are doing it,
right.
Especially, I feel like there's a lot, in the health and wellness field of, oh, I just want to heal people. Oh, I just want to make people feel better. And certainly that's part of it. I love it when my patients come in and say, I feel so much better than I did last week. Like that gives me life and joy. But that's not my driving force in terms of my dreams. Like I have big dreams for my clinic. I have big dreams for having lots of practitioners, being able to help a lot of people, but it's not for the love of medicine, and it's not even for the love of healing. It's for the love of community, right? To build something that's a big network of support. And for me, that looks like a business. And that's not, that's kind of like to admit that, especially to health and wellness people, can sometimes, they can kind of look at you askance at kind of like, well, you're just doing it for the money. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with doing something for a lot of money.
There's nothing wrong.
So long as you're not stomping on other people for it, right? But also, like, it's not like
you got to pay your.
It's more than the
bills.
money. Yeah, it's like it's the money, it's the community, it's so much more than that. And that's to me what business is.
How much did you say your degree cost?
Oh yeah, right. $125,000.
You're entitled to recoup some of that.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, you are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Again, I had a very similar thing because like I did community theater for 35 years, and I would do, and I'm not kidding, 12 shows a year.
Wow.
Some years 6, 7, not uncommon. 6 and 7 was pretty standard, but there were a couple of 12 shows a year.
Wow.
Years, and when you're overlapping, you don't have time to realize that you're kind of miserable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what the pandemic did for me, honestly, was made me sit back and go, okay, I can't do theater. I haven't been in a full play in 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a long time.
It's a long, now I've done other things. I've done readings. I love doing readings. I do. I really like it. Developing scripts and things. That's fun for me. I've been doing all these classes. I love that. I had a weird thing that was happening where I would go to these auditions and I went like almost a year and didn't book anything. And it was weird. I'm like, what's going on? And I think, I've talked about this. Like, I'm a big believer in that the universe will tell you what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I not getting? Why is this so hard? Like, why was the soap so hard? Why is trying to pursue a professional theater career so hard? It's because I'm not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah.
So, and I kept going to these like theater auditions, and they're like, oh, you should do television. I don't watch TV, guys. Like, I don't. But in sort of like taking a step back and looking at it, I realized that the kind of acting that I like to do, the actual style of the acting that I like to do, is very television friendly.
Okay.
I am not a performer.
Yeah.
I'm an actor. They're not necessarily the same thing. You know what I mean?
I can see that. I can see that. Now that you say that, I can see that.
I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with being, like, I have friends who are performers, like, they wake up in the morning and they, like, hello, here I am. Everyone bow to me. And, like, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's zero wrong with that. But I realize that's not who I am.
Right.
I've produced shows where I'm like, cool, we're not going to do a curtain call. I don't like curtain calls. Like, it's not, for me, it's not the part I like.
Yeah.
It's the, here's a character, let me slide as much into the skin of this person as I can and portray them in the most realistic manner possible. That
is TV.
That's TV. Yeah. And so like, shit, now what am I going to do? So I've been having to watch. I'm like, okay, so now I feel like there's stuff out there that I could stomach being. Like, I couldn't do a lot of it. But you have to take that step back.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And be really honest with yourself and realize that sometimes the thing you thought you wanted
ain't
it.
Right. Well, and for me, it was scary too, because I had no idea what I would do if it wasn't acupuncture, because that's what I was doing. And I was doing really well at it. Yeah. Like I, had my best year, almost a 6-figure year in 2019. Nice. Right. And and I was building up to a really good pace. Like everything was going the way it should, right? Quote, should. And so to take a step back and to reevaluate and to go, what if I was supposed to be doing something else, is really terrifying, because like, what if that something else isn't what you're doing now, when you're already established in what you're doing now and it's working, and for me it just sort of worked out, because I took that step back and I was like, you know what, like I kind of gave myself the freedom to be like, you know what, I just want to build a business that I can sell. I'm not going to do acupuncture forever. I'm going to enjoy it until I'm ready to stop, and then I can sell this and then go on to whatever else it happens to be. And it just so happened to turn out that business management is what I'm supposed to be doing, at least right now. Yeah. Because I never would have thought that I would have loved it or been good at it, kind of like with TV, right? Like I never would have looked at it as like, oh yeah, I want to manage people. No.
See, that's the part of owning the business that I hated.
Yeah. See,
but everyone's different.
So far, I don't mind it. I'm pretty good at it. And the strategic planning, I've always loved that. Like, I actually love it. And then I get to sprinkle in some seeing patients there too, for that like connection fire that you get. Yeah.
Community building.
All right.
And I have like, being in the meetings, I've noticed that you're absolutely right. Like that seems to be the thing when you get excited.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we got this, and we got the new girl up front, and so I coordinated this, and this got coordinated, and I have this many hours, and I can have Wednesdays off, and And so,
yes, I love that.
Yeah. It's like seeing you like talk about that. I was like, oh, okay, there it is. That's the thing. I like making. I love the making.
Yeah.
I love making
the creativity of it.
The creative of it. Like I love and I love making soap. Soap is an expensive thing to make. If you're not going to sell, you know what I mean? Like, in order to make big enough batches that the cost of it makes sense, you have to buy, and it's like, if you are buying a handmade bar of soap and it's less than $10, those people are screwing themselves.
Really?
I mean, especially like super duper small. Like I had to start buying in 55-gallon drums to make it make sense to keep my prices at $7.50.
Wow. Is that not including time either? Is that just like materials?
Time. It's materials.
Wow.
It's just because if you're doing like the all natural, it just gets super duper spendy, and it's very time intensive, and it's space intensive because you have to dry it for so long, and so then that gets so it becomes very, very expensive. I love doing it. I recently discovered resin.
Oh. And
resin, I'm noticing, hits that same part of my soul that the soap making did.
Oh, cool.
So I'm like, I'll play with this part. But again, like, in order to make it financially feasible, you have to, like, buy, like, the quantities. And so doing something like a service is more financially feasible.
Well, I've struggled with that a lot because with acupuncture, it's one-on-one, and you can only do so much. You can only do so much. The person has to show up in order to get paid, unless you have a really strict no-show policy, which we have like a semi-strict no-show policy. But still, like they have to show up in order to get paid, and there's only so many places you can be at once. Really, like 4 rooms at once. It would be kind of the max. Ish, right. I mean, some people run more than that, but like not much. Like it's scalable to only a point. Like what's scalable for me is practitioners. Right. Yeah. Right. So it's like a time for
and then you can take like a cut of what they're doing because you're bringing in the people.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And doing the management of it. So so it's not, scaling is hard sometimes,
scaling
whether it's products or whether it's service, scaling is,
scaling's super tough.
It takes some creativity actually.
Yeah. No, because you have to juggle all the things.
Right, and figure out how to make this work. I love that question. Like, it's not like, can I, or it's not like
how.
What if I could? Yeah, it's how. Like, how can I make this work?
Well, but I think in the looking for the how to make something work, you discover a lot of things about yourself.
Yeah,
and you discover your deal breakers.
Yeah,
which I think is really important.
Yeah,
to figure out what your deal breakers are. But also you start to realize other things you're good at. Like, I would never have thought I was good at marketing.
Oh yeah,
but I love marketing. Marketing's fun. That's just fun. It's just fun. Like, it's like, I mean, and there's a cool psychology behind marketing.
Yeah.
And in the wrong hands, I mean, which, we all know that there's some wrong hands dealing with marketing. Like there's a lot of money to be made. That's not how my brain works, but like, it's just fun.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. But I have friends who are in their own businesses, the thought of having to do marketing, like that's the thing that makes them like cry in the shower.
That's me. I don't love it.
Finances and organizing people, that makes me cry in the shower. But yeah, marketing, that kind of stuff, I absolutely love. All right, so we need to talk about something here. So my kids have done remote learning, and they've done like cyber schools.
Yeah.
But in your little bio here, you said that you were unschooled.
Yeah.
That was since elementary, like all the way through like high school, you were unschooled?
From third grade all the way through high school, I was unschooled.
What does that mean to be unschooled?
Unschooled it's homeschooling, right? Okay. We were under the umbrella of homeschooling according to PA law. We were homeschoolers,
right? But
it's kind of like a style of homeschooling, and unschooling is completely student directed.
Okay.
To varying degrees of radicalness depending on the parents. But the way that we did it was, I have a younger brother, it's just the two of us.
Okay.
We were allowed to choose what we learned when we learned it. And our parents, their role was facilitators. Okay. They were there to say, hey, why don't you try this? Or, hey, like, let's sign you up for blank. Like they tried to introduce us to as many things as possible, and their role was to watch us and to see like where that spark happens, where like our eyes light up and we get really interested in something, right, and then dive into that. And out of one interest, a whole education can come from that. So
it's almost like college.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
you focus on things.
Yeah, you focus on things, and like one of the things we were kind of reminded of this recently. My mom found my brother's first website when he was 8 years old, and he like had a bio or something like that on it, right? And he was talking in his like little bio about how he likes to sell Star Wars cards. Like he would buy a whole box of like packs of Star Wars cards, okay, and he would like to sell them to his friends, right? And he was talking about how much he sold each one for and how many he had left and things like that, right? But like by allowing him to like dive into this and buy a whole box of unopened, like packs of Star Wars cards, he was learning business and finances, right? He was learning about math. So it's that kind of thing, right? So like I really liked, writing. I love to write stories. And so it was easy for me to get my sort of reading and writing education in there. But then also the different things I would write about, I'd have to go and like research this sort of like scientific idea in order to be able to write about it then, right? Like that sort of thing. Like you facilitate and you push the kid to explore all they can about something until they're not interested, and then you let them move on to the next thing.
So my son, my youngest, he's 15, is obsessed with his game. Right? This is what makes me think of. And part of this game, it's called Pet Simulator. Part of this game is buying and trading and selling and earning these pets.
Okay.
And there's different levels of these pets, and some pets are worth this much and some pets are worth this much. This child will talk for 30, 40 minutes about how, like, statistically, the odds of him getting this thing is this much, and this is this much, and this is worth this much, and so bought this pet for this much, and it, like, he overvalued it, and this one screwed him over because, all about this really untangible thing of these digitized pets.
Yeah.
And I remember I said to my husband, I'm like, he should be like a statistician or something, because like he really likes that whole like the process of figuring out the value of something and the marketability of something and what that means.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if I have a humongous jungle cat or whatever the heck, I don't know, he starts talking and it goes over my head half the time. I'm like, I don't, rainbow unicorns, what are you saying? But he'll just like, he'll go into, you know, how many there are. And he researches like the game programmer and like, well, Preston, you know, release this many and this, that, and the other. And you know, and what that all means and the value of those things. And I feel like for him, in doing that, all of a sudden he's gotten really good at math because there's so much math involved with that. So when you were saying that, that's really
that's the idea of it. Yeah. Well, and
so were your parents educators, and that's why they decided to? So what was the impetus behind?
Oh, that's a good story, actually. kind of.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah. So like I said, we started when I was in 3rd grade. So I went to elementary school through 2nd grade.
Right.
Both of my parents were, my father passed when I was 14, actually, but both were computer science people. They both had degrees in computer science from, you know, like from the beginning. They were sort of pioneers in that. So very science, math-oriented people. Okay. And when I was in 1st grade, apparently like our whole class just happened to be fairly talented at math. We were doing 2nd grade math by the end of the year. We had a really great 1st grade teacher. Yeah. And then we hit 2nd grade and the teacher was very by the book. And she was like just giving us all of this math work to do over again. And I was getting bored and like really bored. And my parents were like, oh shit.
Yeah.
You know, like we see this happening. And so they even asked my teacher if she could give me harder things. And she was like, oh yeah, once she finishes what she has. They were like, oh my. So they looked into Montessori school for us. We actually almost went to Montessori school, but we had cousins who were homeschooling at the time. And so that's how we heard about it. And so we decided to try homeschooling. And we, for like 2 weeks, we tried to sit down at, you know, the kitchen table with a textbook. Did not work for us. Yeah. That's not our family style. You know, we're very like flowy and, you know, so that's how we got into it. That was the impetus, was that I was starting to hate math. And even I was a little bit, I want to say ruined, but like a little bit ruined by the time we got there. Like my parents were like, okay, Laura, like you got to learn your multiplication tables. And I would be in tears because I didn't think that I could do it anymore because I hated it so much. Yeah. And being that we were homeschooling or unschooling even, you know, they were like, okay, what if we give you like a $50 gift card at Toys R Us if you learn your times tables? I still didn't do it. Yeah. I still just couldn't do it. And so I never got that $50 gift card, which was very sad. Yeah. And I learned consequences. But
like we have a deal that like if you guys get straight A's, I'll give you $100. I've yet to ever have to give away.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work.
No, it
doesn't work. But what I learned from that, just from the experience overall, was by the time I got to high school age, I knew that I wanted to go on and go to college, and I knew I wanted to be sort of intellectually matched with my peers. I knew I wanted the equivalent of a high school diploma. So we belonged to like this homeschool co-op, and they had classes twice a week that were high school level classes. So I signed myself up for we had been going there for forever, but I chose the classes that I wanted to do. And I remember, I think it was like 9th or 10th grade or something like that. I signed up for a physics class, which was like a 12th grade level physics class, and geometry without ever having done algebra, and did fine.
I took geometry before I took algebra.
Yeah, it was fine. Like I sailed right through. Like, you know, I had to learn a little bit of algebra.
I took algebra too before I took geometry because I was scared of geometry.
Oh, okay. I actually liked geometry.
I can do advanced level math, but like spatial things like freak me out. I was like, wait a minute, that didn't sound right.
Yeah. See, the thing, like, I'm good at math. I thought that I hated it, but because my parents didn't force me to do it when I clearly didn't want to do it, I had that space to be like, oh, like, and then when I finally, one step in front of the other, got to the point where I was like, I have this dream of getting a high school diploma. Here's the next step to do it. It was fine. It was fine. Yeah. And I know a lot of parents who homeschool get afraid of kids getting behind and whatever, but
what does behind mean?
Yeah, right.
What does it mean?
Behind, right?
So, like, I mean, I was usually a straight A student. Usually, I had some abuse stuff, and so I was the kid in 9th grade that was like, how low can my grade be and actually finish this test? It was like, can I pull off like the lowest grade possible, but actually finish the test?
Boundary pusher.
Yep. Oh, well, I was angry at the world. So, but what does behind mean? You know what I mean? Like, so I did that in my 9th grade year and I still graduated 14th in my class.
Right.
You know, so like, what does behind mean? It's everyone's different.
It's a construct.
It's a construct. My 17-year-old was a preemie, like super duper teeny tiny, and physically she's fine, but intellectually there's some massive struggles. So like, it's going to take her longer. Okay. So what?
So it takes her longer.
But it panics people.
Yeah.
And I know, like, my husband is a former teacher, and we disagree on this sometimes, because I'm like, if they don't do their homework, that's on them.
Yeah.
Like, us yelling about it isn't going to solve anything.
Yeah.
You know, all it's going to do is become that thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't want to contribute to that. I don't want to contribute to anything that makes them not want to learn something.
Right. Yes.
You know, so like,
that's very unschooling of you.
Oh God. Well, I just like, you know, but I know that I was a straight A student, not because I loved learning, but because I liked how I felt when they approved of me because of my grades.
Yeah.
You know, because I didn't, at home they didn't, but like teachers loved me.
Yeah.
I'm still friends with, you know, I'm still friends with some of my high school teachers. So, and I do think that sometimes the kids who excel in standard, organized education tend to be those people pleaser kids.
Yeah.
You know, and people pleaser kids tend to grow up and have jobs that they hate.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was talking with my mom the other day, and she was just remarking about how, like, proportionally, how many unschoolers tend to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And we were talking about why that is. And, you know, I think a lot of it has to do with, well, we grew up knowing that we could do whatever we set our minds to because that's all we had.
Yeah.
You know, like, and our parents pushing us toward discovery and things like that.
Yeah,
like, that's what you need to do. But, like, yeah, but, you know, we pursued what we wanted to pursue and we succeeded at it generally. If not, we learned from that too.
Right.
But, you know, there's that confidence of knowing how to fail and how to succeed.
Right.
That leads into entrepreneurship really well.
That's so funny. I do not consider myself entrepreneurial at all. I just don't follow direction well. Listen, I think when you come from trauma,
mm-hmm.
you either become a people pleaser or you become a fuck y'all, I know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Like,
I've lived this long. Fuck y'all, I know what I'm doing. And I'm a fuck y'all, I know what I'm doing. Sorry. You know, it's you know, here we are in the midst of I've never even watched a podcast. I should have one. I've seen some now. But, you know, there's this weird societal thing about folks who don't do what's considered the normal.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, well, you're a grown up now, so you got to be an adult. I'm like, well, what does that mean?
Right.
You know, I remember my parents. My parents were toxic to each other, but I remember this one fight that my folks were having. And my dad used to play guitar, and he would draw, and he was quite good at it. And my mother would harp on him about how adults don't do that. You're a dad now, you don't get to do that stuff anymore. And I was like, fuck all that. And so he never did. He stopped. Yeah. He stopped playing guitar. I mean, he would collect them. Yeah. But he didn't play them. Oh,
that's tragic.
He played guitar and banjo, and he stopped playing both those. Every time I hit this, every single time. I'm a flailer. It's just what I am. So, like, I remember that struck me. I mean, as toxic as the relationship with my father was, and that was also abusive, I remember going, I would never want to make someone feel like they had to stop being who they are just because they reached a certain age.
Yeah.
That's awful.
It's tragic.
It is absolutely tragic. I had a friend a couple of years ago who I feel like it was a similar idea where out of nowhere, like, we've been friends for like 2 decades, and I hadn't realized I hadn't heard from her in a while. And so I messaged her, and I realized, we're no longer connected on Facebook. I still have her phone number memorized, text. And so I text her going, hey, I haven't heard from you. Is everything okay? Like, what happened? Did like your Facebook get hacked? Like, you know, what happened? And she sends me this long diatribe about how like I need to learn how to grow up, and you know I keep chasing this pipe dream and this, that, and the other, and how like I'm a bad influence on my children because I won't grow up. I'm like, you hate your job.
Yeah,
you hate your job. You got married when you thought you were supposed to. Mm-hmm. You never had children because you thought you couldn't afford it.
Yeah,
you hate that, but you're mad at me for doing those things because I didn't have the right to do them when I did them.
That's what she wants. That's why she's mad.
But I think that happens. I think that we get so wrapped up in what am I supposed to be doing? Like, what's the expectation? What do people expect from me? Mm-hmm. And we don't take that step back and go, but what do I want to do?
Right. Even me who grew up being, you know, with parents who were like, what do you want to do? You know, like what interests you? Like even me, like I feel that societal pressure too, right? Yeah. Like I got into this field and was like, oh no, I have to like really want to be an acupuncturist. Right. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Society's hard sometimes.
It is. You know, and I am a 53-year-old woman who's not the skinniest thing on the planet trying to get into television. And so like I'm trying not to like be like, it's okay. This is okay. This is okay. Like, you know, like we tell ourselves, we hear these things over and over again, and then we start to think that they're true. And I think it's like the saddest. It's so incredibly sad to me when people want things and they don't because they're so afraid of it.
Yeah.
And then they get mad at you for doing it.
Yeah.
But more they get mad at themselves for still wanting it. Mm-hmm. I have a friend. I won't drop names. Not you, Stacy. I'm sorry. Poor Stacy gets called out all the time because like she's one of my dearest. And so another friend, you know, is like, I think she's in her 60s now, and she'd always wanted to perform, and she never allowed herself to do it because she thought she wasn't enough, or it was silly, or you know, she's supposed to be a mom, she should be doing that. But then her kids were doing it, and then she wanted it so bad, and now she's starting to do it, and she's like gets cast in things all the time, and it's glorious to watch. But you still see, you can still like. Even through just like Facebook posts, you can just like see her struggle with, I love this, I'm not supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure she's getting pushback from somebody, you know.
Good for her though.
But good for her.
So
listen, I was like the first time when she was like, I auditioned for a musical. I'm like, fuck yes, you did. Yes, you did. It's
yeah.
I love. And I think it's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because like I love seeing people do things that seem impossible, even if it just seems impossible to them.
Okay, so I have a patient, and one of the things I love to ask my patients, especially the first time they come in, is what do you love to do that you can't do anymore because of what's happening, right? And one of them, she is older, like, you know, late 60s.
Okay.
So
I was about to say, watch it.
Right. I know. I do have to be careful with this, but
I'm a really young 53.
Recently left her abusive husband, which I'm like already, like at her age, right? Like moved out on her own, probably for the first time, you know, probably in ever. Like decades. Yeah, right. If ever. Right. Yeah. She moved out on her own. So proud of her. She was in such physical pain and emotional pain, depression, right? So I asked her, you know, what's something that you love to do that you're just not doing these days? And she said, I used to love to sew. And she was like, I just can't. I can't sit there and hold the thing, and I just can't sew anymore. And she like literally tears down her face, right? And I was almost right there with her. Like it's hard sometimes to have boundaries, you know, when you get into somebody's like what they love and that they can't do. And so we you know, and I don't I'll treat anybody regardless of ability to pay. She's very limited income because of her situation at this point. She pays like $10 every time she comes in, and I love to see her. I love seeing her every time she comes in because she always has this big smile on her face no matter what. And so we've been working together. We worked together for, you know, a couple of months, and every time I'd say, have you looked at the sewing machine? Have you are we moving toward that yet? And finally, after a couple of months, I said, how about that sewing machine? And she looked at me and she smiled and she said, I sat down and I did a little bit. And I almost cried right then. And this year for Christmas, we just got a new dog, and sometimes we bring the dog into the office. Yeah. And this year for Christmas, she sewed our dog a winter coat, like a polar fleece winter coat and summer dress. Like, it's probably the gift that, one of those, it means so much to me that she did that.
I love that you sliding scale, folks, because
oh yeah,
one of the things we
it's like a secret sliding scale, but it is,
we won't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, okay, yeah, you didn't get the money from her, but you got other things.
Oh, so much else.
So we with Pip and Lola's, we would donate to domestic abuse mostly, and sometimes I would get these notes from folks who this thing that I gave them made their worst day better. And so I'm like, I'm super broke, but those notes.
Yeah. I have cards from
you can't
this.
Pay for that.
No, I have cards from this person on my fridge that make me cry to read them sometimes. Yeah. We turned on the tipping feature on our credit card machine. You don't ever tip back. We're a medical. You don't tip your doctors.
Right.
We're a medical clinic, but we turn that on and we tell people, if you choose to tip, this helps people who otherwise can't afford services. So from a business perspective, we're not even losing anything by doing sliding scale. We use that money and it works all around. And like I said, it's only semi-secret sliding scale, but we don't ever.
I do feel like your average person, obviously there's going to be someone who takes advantage, but I think your average person, when they see that, will make up for it.
Yeah.
We did for a long time. We had a pay what you can table.
Okay.
Before we started donating. Once we started donating, I realized I needed those soaps for the donations. But we had a pay what you can table, and most people would pay its value, if not more. Obviously, there were some people who tried to take advantage, and usually, they were obviously wealthy.
Oh,
they would try to pay the least.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Yeah.
But the idea was so that some little 8-year-old could buy his mom a present. That was the idea behind it. But I do feel like. So I used to run a theater company, and we always would have a pay what you can night, and we generally made more money on pay what you can.
Wow.
Than we would on a regular night, because I think that people get it, and I think that
the gratitude
they see what you're trying to do.
Yes.
And I know that if I'm out at a restaurant, and as poor as I am, if I notice somebody's being an extra asshole to the wait staff, I will always tip extra.
Yeah.
To try to make up for it. I think more people do that than not.
Yes. Yeah, I think so too.
I do think that in general, the world is full of good people.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. I
have more optimism than I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I think
my stomach's growling. I forgot to eat lunch. This is bad. I'm doing 2 podcasts back to back. This is bad. I'm going to have to go get a smoothie between. Homer, Alaska. Talk to me about Homer, Alaska.
Oh my God. It's my favorite place in the entire... I'm wearing a Juneau, Alaska shirt today.
So did you live in Alaska? Are you from Alaska?
No. My soul lives there.
Okay.
It pops back and forth.
Why Homer?
I just feel at home there. So the first time I went was in 2014. One of my dear friends from acupuncture school is from there.
Okay.
She grew up there, and one break, she was like, "Do you want to come visit Alaska with me? I'm going home." And I was like, "Yeah, I want to go."
Yeah.
And I got there, and suddenly everything was magical. It was like there's something about the wilderness, I think. Like everything is wilderness, even when you're in the city, even the bigger cities, you're just surrounded by wilderness and you can't escape it. And there's something so humbling about that. There's something so like you cannot extract yourself from the rhythms of nature when you're there. And I love that inability to extract, because here, we're so disconnected. We can be in a big city and not see, we can see trees that someone has planted for the aesthetics or whatever, but you don't see the forest. You don't see the bears that are going to eat you. in the forest, right?
Right.
Or the moose that will charge you down.
And they're huge.
They're huge and they're really freaking scary. They're
That's interesting because one of the things I like about Pittsburgh is for being a city, there's a lot of nature.
There is. Yeah, there is.
Because I've lived in some towns that do not.
But still, there's, you know what? It was really interesting. So this last time that we went up for Thanksgiving this year. Okay. And we went to Juneau, first time in Juneau, sort of on the way back. Shirt. Hence the shirt. I love this fox is just so...
I actually painted... I have a painting that I did that looks similar with the one that... it has like two eyeballs peeking out, but just like the tail and the
one eye and the... it's... Anyway, but we took like a self-tour of the state capitol building, and there's like no one there because it's the holidays and whatever. Right. So the secretary came out and she's like, do you want to see the Senate chamber? And we were like, yeah.
Yes.
So we went in and we were asking her all these questions about like the Senate chamber. And one of the things that my mom asked her was, is there much, is the polarization there politically as bad as it is in the rest of the country? And she said, no, absolutely not. She said that there are, I'm going to forget the numbers. There's something like 18, I think, members of the Senate were part of the bipartisan committee, and only 3 of them were not. They were all really hard right Republicans that just refused to work across the lines. Everyone else worked across the lines. And I find that that's true in a lot of Alaska, even though you'll find like really like across the variety of political, religious spectrums, people work together because you have to, because you're all in the wilderness.
Right, because you'll die otherwise.
It's very neighborly. It's very community oriented, and so even though there are fights, obviously, people are people, but to me, there's still this sense of kind of, we're going to survive this winter together.
So funny. I've always been a little like obsessed with Alaska, and I've always wanted to do that cruise along the glacier. I don't do dark well.
Okay.
And I lived in Seattle for a couple of years, and that got too dark, and I was like, there's no way I could handle Alaska.
It's such a beautiful darkness, though. I mean, like, I've only been there twice in the winter.
It's dusky, right?
It's a golden hour. Yeah. It's always slanted because the sun is just so low, and it lasts a long time. It's like it's always sunrise and sunset, which I think is beautiful. And to be fair, I haven't done a whole winter there yet. Yeah. Someday I will, but I haven't done it yet. So maybe I would feel differently, come
So what would you have to do to go?
But, well, I'd have to sell my business, right? And so that's kind of part of it. Part of it's like, I want to be able to sell my business so I can buy a house in Homer and retire there. And until then, I'll just go and, maybe I can like do acupuncture relief work or something. Because there are acupuncturists in Homer. Maybe I can go up for a month or something and let them take their vacations. And, I'll just visit as often as I can until then.
I love how different people are, and like what they like and what they don't like. I grew up in a small town. I don't find comfort in small towns. They feel dangerous to me.
Interesting.
But that's any harm that has come my way has happened in small towns.
Okay. So that makes sense.
Right. I feel I can walk through Manhattan at 1:00 in the morning by myself and feel perfectly fine. Thanks very much. So, but everyone's different, right? So I find that interesting. I actually took Bruce to New York for the first time, and he's from a small town in Oregon. And because we had talked about, like, before he ended up moving here, we had talked about going to New York. I'm like, okay, you've never been. I know how overwhelmed you get in Seattle. It's a different animal. Seattle's a big city. It's 500,000 people in a very small enclosed space because the lakes kind of forced it to be, enclosed. But it ain't Manhattan. So, we left Penn Station and instant overwhelm. I was like, yeah, no. I want to be here a lot. I love you more. We're not doing that. But he has discovered he really likes Brooklyn, so that might be an eventual, maybe someday after the kids graduate from high school, maybe, because I think if I move Perrin one more time, he'll have it all over our heads. He does not handle change well. I'm all about it. I'm like, what's different now? Let's go. And he's like, you got rid of the microwave, but I loved that microwave. So like, he just cannot. What was it we just did? We just changed. Oh, we got new cabinets in the kitchen, right? Not because we were buying cabinets, but because we had the ones from the store. and we needed a place to put them. And Bruce was like, well, I don't like the shelving we have. We'll bring this metal shelving home and we'll turn that into our kitchen shelving. Okay, cool. I thought Perrin was going to just completely implode because it was another change.
Oh, no.
Because it completely changed the look of the kitchen.
Yeah.
Because they were like, there was doors before, and now it's open and you can see the window behind it. Like it's a completely open, and it, with his head, he did not like that at all. Does not handle change well. But I think it's because he's had so much of it.
Yeah.
In his entire life. He's like, so I can see Perrin being the guy who buys a house at 21 and never leaves it ever. He's like, this is where I live. I'm never going. You're going to have to pull me out of here on a stretcher. Like, I'm not going. Whereas I moved so much as a kid, like after 5 or 6 years, I'm like, okay, I gotta get out of here. I gotta rearrange the entire house. Like, it's making me crazy. It's too much of the same. So yeah, that's funny. Okay, so this is the other sort of standard question. Is like, all things being equal, money's not a problem. Like, you don't have to like do anything crazy. Like, what is your perfect life? What does that look like? Like, if your life is perfect, what would that look like?
Oh my God, that's a good question too.
I think it's important. Some people don't know, so I think it's important to ask yourself this question.
It is. And, you know, I do this like ideal life visioning a whole lot because I love it, because I like imagination, right? I like to write. I like to create with, honestly, and this is the one, I'm going to call it sort of like concrete-ish dream. And it's not even a dream. It's something that I've known to be true about myself since I was like a wee little one, is I want to be a philanthropist.
Okay.
I want to change the world with my money. So I always have known that like that's like my, like in a way, a love language, I guess. Like giving money, like providing financial support to people who need it is what fills me up. Yep. Right.
Do you do that thing? Because like Bruce and I do that thing where like, if I won the lottery, I would set up this foundation to give these people money. Yes. I would set up this foundation to give these people money. Like we're like, well, we'll keep like 50,000 of it for ourselves, and then everybody else would get.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'll set this so much aside, and then I can like retire to Alaska, and I can, or travel to Alaska if I want to. I love to travel too, so my ideal life includes a whole lot of world travel, you know, and I have horses, so my ideal life includes like, you know, being able to provide for my very expensive horses that I love.
Horses are expensive.
They're so expensive.
I have a couple of friends who have horses.
Yes. Yeah. They're wonderful. They're so expensive.
Right.
So, you know,
really big spendy dogs.
Right. Yeah. Having space too. For me, having time is like the biggest luxury for me. So having time that I can sit and rest and be creative in order to then go out and just explode and explore and discover and learn and be curious and then come back and rest. So having the time to do that, but also having the space to do that, because I have kind of a big bubble of, I'm an introvert, and I have my, you know, my need to like be by myself for a while. And that's kind of translates into physical space. So we live in the country right now. We have like 10 acres, and that's perfect for me. So my ideal life includes like nature, space to come back to reset, and then go back out into the world and like shower people with money.
I realized because everyone always says I'm an extrovert. Like that's what people always think that. I'm like, yes, and I love being with 1 or 2 people.
Yeah.
1 or 2 people fuels me.
Yeah.
10.
It's a lot.
Especially if I'm expected to be on in some way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if it's just a bunch of us like hanging out at my house and we're just like hanging, but like we'll have game night and like I'll have like 25 people in my house. I'm like, cool, I love y'all. I'm going to bed. You can stay. I'm like, I like you being here. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to go over there. You guys do your thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to, my stomach this is not the first time.
I can't hear it for what it's worth.
Oh God. I know sometimes it picks it up. When my friend Chad was here, my stomach kept growling. He's like, why didn't you eat before? I'm like, because I didn't think about it. First things, I can't feed myself. I can. I'll eventually. So like, what kinds of things do you do? Like I'm a big believer in do one thing every day towards your dream. So some days it's 3, some days it's none, but it balances out to at least a thing a day.
Yeah.
So do you have some kind of either a daily practice or a weekly practice, or do you keep lists or whatever where you're like, okay, that's what I want. How do I get from here to there?
Yeah. So I'm not a super ritualistic person. I can't say that I have like a routine that, I get up in the morning and I meditate or anything like that. I don't have that, but a habit that my brain has gotten into is that future visioning, being like, okay, so like I'm driving along in my car and just like feeling like I have, the 7-figure clinic that I'm building, right? Just what does this feel like? Like embodying that is something that I love to do. That gives me a whole lot of energy. That really drives me a whole lot. Strategic planning, again. I love to sit down and make those lists. Like, here's my projects that I want to do, and here's how I'm going to do them, and I'm going to assign this to that person. And I love that sort of, like, it's a little bit like writing, in that way. Writing is another thing that actually gives me a whole lot of, it's a break from actually thinking about business. It makes me sit back and get back into my more creative, imaginative zone. So I'll do that too.
What kind of writing?
Fiction, mostly. Like, I have a story that I'm working on right now.
Do you do short stories? Do you do novellas?
Novellas, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's cool. Have you ever published anything?
Not really.
Have you tried to publish anything?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Well, no, for sure.
You can't publish them if you don't try.
I've published editorials and articles and things like that because I'm good at that too. But
I love
nothing
having
fiction.
written.
Yeah.
The process of writing is like, let me open up a vein and throw it all,
Yeah.
I love having written because I've written a lot. I was like a columnist for a newspaper and in one of my incarnations.
Oh, that's cool.
I've lived a lot of lives.
Yeah.
That's why I was curious. Do you ever, like, in your writing, do you ever like manifest, like where in your stories perfect life exists?
When I was a kid, that was like 100% the stories I would write.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Erica. I am 11 years old and I have 100 horses and 100 dogs and 100 cats. And you're like,
this is what my life looks like. Yeah. Well, they say write what you know.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I want to say thank you for coming. I realize that as a practitioner of Oriental medicine, being in front of a camera is not necessarily like a high on your list of priorities. Yeah. So no, I appreciate you coming and taking the time and talking with us about this stuff. You're what, my 7th guest, I think? I think you're my 7th. Yeah,
that's a good number.
I know. Isn't there supposed to be something like spiritual about 7?
Yeah, it's oh, I'm gonna get it wrong. There is something. It's like a sacred number.
Yeah,
yeah.
No, but so I appreciate you coming and being here, being part of my weird dream that I'm making happen.
Fun.
It's so much fun. It was so nice. It's nice to get to talk to you.
Yeah.
Because
in person.
This is our first time being in the same space. Yeah. So I think that's also part of the reason I wanted to do this podcast, because like this was the first time I got to be in the same space with you, same time with Steve, who came a couple weeks ago. It's the first time getting to be in the same space with him. So it's like, okay, all right, I get to like actually get to know these people because that's fun for me. Like I love, one of my favorite things in the world is like, why do we do what we do and what makes people tick? Mm-hmm. So
me too.
I think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because we all come to things from different places, and even if we come from similar places, we end up in different.
That's why I love to write. I love to create characters that have been from different places and come together and interact with each other. Yeah. And how does that happen? How does that manifest? What comes out? Like a bunch of my characters, I didn't even sit down and plan out who they were. They just appeared in the story, and I was like, "Oh shit, you're a person."
Yeah, isn't that fun?
Yeah.
And so I've written children's books, and I had this one that I had this whole series of these children's books. Evie is as real a person to me as my own children, because I spent so much time with her.
Yeah.
Right now I'm writing a television show. But Katie is very real to me. And it's interesting because like they become like your friends.
Yes.
It's like, is this what Imaginary Friends started as? Is like someone just like making stories of, what they wanted life to look like. you know?
Yeah.
I love that shit.
Yep.
I love that shit.
I love it too.
Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for being here and part of us, and keep on dreaming. And that's that.